I'm not deleting my dating apps. We're not married. I can do what I want, she said when I saw Tinder on her phone. You're right. I agreed, created my own profile that night, and met someone better within a week. She called crying that I was cheating. I reminded her, we're not married. I can do what I want. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. It was the notification that did it. A soft, jaunty ping, a flash of garish orange and white on the otherwise dark screen. Her phone, charging on my nightstand. My side of the nightstand. The text had been from her mom, earlier. I'd plugged it in for her while she was in the shower, a small, unconscious habit of care. The screen had gone black, and I'd forgotten about it until that sound, a sound I hadn't heard in almost a year, cut through the quiet of our bedroom. New match. Hey Qley, you free this week? The words glowed, an accusation in 12-point font. I felt my body go very still. The world shrank to the dimensions of that 5-inch screen. I could hear the shower still running, the steady drumbeat of water a stark contrast to the sudden, frantic thumping in my chest. A year. We'd been together a year. I remembered the delete the apps talk, clear as day. We'd been at that terrible wine bar with the sticky floors, laughing, her hand in mine. So, I'd said, swirling the cheap Cabernet, I think it's time. The great app purge. She'd grinned, that brilliant, life-of-the-party grin that had hooked me from the start. Absolutely. It's official. We're off the market. She'd pulled out her phone right then and there, made a show of wiggling her fingers before stabbing the delete button on Tinder. See? Gone. All yours. I'd done the same. It felt like a milestone. A commitment. Now, the shower shut off. The silence in the apartment was heavy, suffocating. I heard the bathroom door open, a cloud of steam billowing into the hallway. Qley emerged, wrapped in a towel, her hair piled up in a messy bun. You're still up? She asked, padding over to her dresser. She smelled of her coconut body wash, a scent I associated with home. I didn't answer. I just picked up her phone, the message still burning on the lock screen, and held it out to her. She took it, her smile fading as she read the screen. Her expression didn't shift to guilt or horror. It tightened into annoyance. She swiped the notification away and tossed the phone onto the bed as if it were a piece of junk mail. What's going on, Qley? My voice was quieter than I expected, a low rasp. She let out an exasperated sigh, the kind you reserve for a child asking too many questions. God, Alex, why are you looking at my phone? That's so invasive. It lit up. I wasn't snooping. I'm not accusing. I'm asking. I kept my gaze level on her. I thought we deleted those. Together. She rolled her eyes, a gesture I used to find endearing, a sign of her fiery spirit. Now it just looked contemptuous. She started rubbing lotion onto her arms, not even looking at me. Relax, would you? It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. The phrase felt inadequate, ridiculous. Seeing that you're actively getting matches on Tinder isn't a big deal. It's just for fun, she said, finally turning to face me, her hands on her hips. The towel tightened around her. It's just to see who's out there. It's an ego boost. It doesn't mean anything. Each word was a little hammer, chipping away at the foundation of everything I thought we were. Fun. Ego boost. Doesn't mean anything. I thought of the life we were building. The plans for a trip to Portugal we were saving for. The way I'd driven across town at 2 a.m. to get her medicine when she had the flu. The way I'd listened for hours about her stressful job, massaging her shoulders while she vented. Did any of that mean anything? The finality in her tone, the utter lack of remorse, it ignited a cold, clear fury in my gut. But I didn't let it out. I compressed it, forged it into something harder. So, I said, my voice dangerously calm. You're not going to delete it. It wasn't a question. She shrugged, a dismissive, infuriating little lift of her shoulders. No, I'm not deleting my dating apps. We're not married, Alex. I can do what I want. We're not married. I can do what I want. The words hung in the air, sucking all the oxygen out of the room. They were so calculated, so cruel in their technical truth. There was no ring on her finger, no legally binding document. Just my stupid, trusting heart and a promise I thought we'd both made. She was hiding behind a technicality to justify a fundamental betrayal. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I thought I knew was gone. In her place was a stranger who saw our relationship as a temporary holding cell, a place to wait until a better offer came along. The commitment I felt was a one-way street, and she had just erected a toll booth. The heat in my face receded, replaced by a strange, icy stillness. The confusion and pain were still there, but they were being pushed down, buried under a layer of absolute clarity. She must have seen the change in my expression. The fight drained from her posture, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. "Alex, don't be like this. It's really not a big deal." I nodded slowly, as if considering a minor point in a philosophical debate. "Okay," I said, my voice flat and even. "I see. It doesn't mean anything." "Got it." I turned away from her, walked to the closet, and pulled out a spare pillow and blanket. "What are you doing?" she asked, her voice sharp. I didn't answer. I just walked out of our bedroom, down the hall, and into the spare room we used as a dumping ground for boxes and an old treadmill. The air was stale. I laid the blanket on the couch, placed the pillow at one end. The click of the door closing behind me was the period at the end of the sentence she had written. "We're not married. I can do what I want." "Okay, Qley. Game on." The couch in the spare room was uncomfortable, a fact I'd known but never truly appreciated until I spent the entire night trying to find a position that didn't pinch a nerve. But the physical discomfort was a welcome distraction from the hollow ache in my chest. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, the popcorn texture lit by the orange glow of the streetlights, and replayed the conversation on a loop. "We're not married. I can do what I want." Her logic was flawless, in its own twisted, self-serving way. It was a lawyer's defense, not a partner's explanation. There was no emotion in it, no recognition of the unspoken contract of loyalty we'd built. It was a cold, hard statement of fact that she wielded like a weapon to justify her betrayal. And the more I thought about it, the less it hurt and the more it clarified. If that was the rule set she wanted to play by, then so be it. My mistake had been playing a game of hearts by the rules of chess. She had just taught me the real rules. The next morning, I heard her moving around in the kitchen. The familiar sounds of the coffee grinder, the cabinet closing, the microwave beeping. A normal Sunday. I waited until I heard her go back into our bedroom, her bedroom now, before I emerged. I showered in the guest bathroom, dressed in silence, and left the apartment without a word. I went to a cafe across town, ordered a black coffee, and opened my laptop. The first step was mechanical, almost clinical. I downloaded Tinder, then Hinge, then Bumble. The icons popped up on my screen, little digital grenades. Creating the profiles was surreal. I used a photo she had taken of me on a hiking trip last fall, my face relaxed and happy, the sun behind me. I wrote a bio that was honest and straightforward, nothing like the brooding, wounded man I felt like inside. It wasn't about getting back at her. Not exactly. It was about reclaiming the freedom she had so casually invoked. She had opened a door, and I decided to walk through it. The moment I swiped right on the first profile, a strange weight lifted. The power she had to hurt me diminished, replaced by a sense of agency. I was no longer the victim of her betrayal. I was a participant in my own liberation. When I returned to the apartment that afternoon, the air was thick with unspoken tension. Qley was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She didn't look up. "Are you going to be moody forever?" she asked, her voice dripping with a boredom that was clearly feigned. She was testing the waters, trying to provoke a reaction, to draw me into a fight she knew she could win with emotional dramatics. I stopped, looked at her for a moment, and felt nothing but a distant pity. "I'm fine," I said, my tone flat and undisturbed. I walked past her to the kitchen to get a glass of water. The silence that followed was more potent than any argument. My calmness was a wall she couldn't scale. She huffed, put her phone down a little too hard, and stalked back into the bedroom, shutting the door with a firm click. I finished my water, washed the glass, and put it away. The domestic rituals felt like they belonged to someone else's life. That night, I matched with Maya. Her profile was clever without being trying. She had a picture of herself laughing, her head thrown back, and another of her covered in mud at what looked like a Tough Mudder race. Her bio read, "Professional problem solver by day, amateur baker by night." My chocolate chip cookies have been called a religious experience by me. I messaged her something simple. "A religious experience, huh? That's a bold claim." What's the secret? She wrote back almost immediately. The secret is an irresponsible amount of high-quality chocolate and a pinch of sea salt. Also, I may have sold my soul to the devil. Details to follow on date 2. I laughed. A real, genuine laugh that felt foreign in my throat. We messaged back and forth for an hour, the conversation flowing with an easy, effortless rhythm. It was nothing like the draining, performative texts I'd had with Qley lately. This was just fun. 2 days later, I was sitting across from Maya in a dimly lit cocktail bar with exposed brick and soft jazz. She was even more striking in person, with intelligent eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled. There was no pretense, no games. So, she said, taking a sip of her old-fashioned. The obligatory first date question. What brings you to the wild world of online dating? I could have given her a canned line. I could have lied. But there was a directness about her that invited honesty. I was in a relationship, I said, swirling the ice in my glass. I thought it was exclusive. She recently informed me that, since we weren't married, her definition of exclusive was a bit more flexible than mine. Maya's eyebrows lifted slightly. Ouch, that's a brutal way to find out. It was, I admitted. But in a weird way, it was also a gift. It cleared away all the ambiguity. She wanted freedom, and her honesty, however cruel, gave me the freedom to walk away without looking back. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. So you're not here to rebound. I'm here to have a drink with someone who seems interesting, I said, meaning it. And to maybe secure an invitation for those cookies someday. She laughed, a warm, rich sound. We'll see. You have to pass the first date vetting process. So far, so good. We talked for 2 hours. We talked about our jobs. She was an architect, our stupid childhood pets, our favorite terrible movies. It was easy. It was normal. It was everything my life with Qley had stopped being months ago, a fact I was only now realizing. When I got home, the apartment was dark and silent. Qley had left a single lamp on in the living room. There was a note on the kitchen counter, written in her aggressive, slanted handwriting. We need to talk about this. You can't just ignore me. This is childish. I picked up the note, read it once, and then crumpled it into a tight ball. I shot it into the trash can. It was a perfect swish. I didn't reply. The silence was my answer. The profile was my answer. Maya's laugh over a cocktail was my answer. For the first time since that notification had lit up her phone, I felt like I was the one holding the power. And I hadn't had to say a single angry word to take it. The shift was seismic. Living in the same apartment, we were now celestial bodies in different orbits, passing in the hallway with the gravitational pull of strangers. My silence wasn't a weapon I wielded. It was a fortress I had built. And it was driving Qley insane. She tried everything to breach the walls. The angry sighs when I walked into a room. The slamming of cupboard doors. The pointed comments made to the empty air. It's so immature to give someone the silent treatment, she announced to the living room one evening as I read a book. I turned a page. I hadn't been giving her the silent treatment. I simply had nothing left to say to her. There's a difference. The silent treatment is a tactic designed to provoke a reaction. My silence was the absence of a need to engage. She couldn't tell the difference, and that was the point. The messages with Maya, meanwhile, were a lifeline to a world that wasn't broken. We went on a second date, then a third. It was on the third date, a casual walk through the art museum, that the dam broke. We were standing in front of a massive, chaotic abstract painting, and I made a dumb joke about it looking like my spice rack. She laughed, leaning into me slightly, and I put my arm around her. It felt natural, right? A mutual friend of Qley's, Sarah, was there with her own date. I saw her do a double take, her eyes widening before she quickly looked away. I didn't care. The rules of my old life no longer applied. I got home around 10. The apartment was dark, but I could feel the storm waiting for me. I flipped on the kitchen light and was reaching for a glass when she emerged from the bedroom. She was still in her work clothes, but her makeup was smudged, her eyes red-rimmed and blazing. Where were you? The question was a whip crack in the quiet. I filled the glass with water, took a slow sip. Out. Out, she repeated, her voice rising. Sarah saw you. She saw you at the museum with some girl. Who is she? I turned and leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. The calm I felt was unnerving, even to me. It was the calm of finality. I was at the museum. Yes. Her face contorted, a mask of pure, unadulterated hypocrisy. You're cheating on me? Are you fucking serious, Alex? After all this, after you acting like such a wounded little saint, you're actually cheating? The word hung in the air, absurd and grotesque. I didn't respond immediately. I let her stand there, trembling with indignant rage, let her fully feel the weight of her own accusation. When I spoke, my voice was quiet, measured, a stark contrast to her hysterics. Cheating. I let the word sit for a beat. No, Qley. We're not married. I can do what I want. It was a perfect echo, a reflection. For a second, she just stared, her brain struggling to compute the feedback. The script she had written had been flipped. The color drained from her face, then rushed back in a blotchy, furious red. It's different, she shrieked, her hands balling into fists at her sides. How? For me, it was just a game. It was just for my ego. It didn't mean anything. And for me, it does. I asked, my head tilted. Is that the distinction? That my actions might actually lead to a meaningful connection, while yours were just empty vanity? That doesn't make it better, Qley. It makes it pathetic. She flinched as if I'd struck her. You're actually replacing me? After 1 year. You're just moving on like I was nothing. I'm living my life by the rules you set. I said, my tone flat and final. I put my glass in the sink. You don't get to change them now that you don't like how the game is going. I walked past her, toward the spare room. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. The desperation in her touch was a tangible thing. Alex, please. We need to talk about this. You can't just do this. I gently, but firmly, pried her fingers from my arm. There's nothing to talk about. You were very clear. I closed the spare room door. This time, I didn't hear the lock click. I felt it, a metaphysical seal on the tomb of our relationship. On the other side of the door, I heard a choked sob, then the sound of something. A vase, maybe, shattering against the wall. The unraveling had begun. The text started that night. A barrage that lit up my phone on the nightstand. Qley, this isn't you. You are doing this to hurt me. Qley, we had a year together. A year. And you're throwing it away over this? Qley, I'll delete the apps. Okay. Is that what you want? I'm deleting them right now. Qley, look. Image attached. A screenshot of her app store, showing the Tinder icon with a little cloud next to it, indicating it was off her phone. I didn't respond. Deleting the app was a meaningless gesture. It wasn't the app that was the problem. It was the mindset that installed it in the first place. She was treating the symptom, not the disease. The next day, the tone shifted again. The pleas turned to venom. Qley, so what? She's just some easy slut you matched with. You think that's real? Qley, you're a coward. You can't even face me. Qley, you're going to regret this. I was the best thing that ever happened to you. I read them with a detached curiosity, like an anthropologist studying a bizarre tribal ritual. This was the true Qley, the one hidden beneath the layer of performative commitment. The one who, when denied what she wanted, resorted to insults and threats. There was no love in these messages, only possession and wounded pride. Her downfall wasn't a single event. It was a slow-motion collapse I witnessed from a distance. She started calling in sick to work. I'd hear her crying in her room. The vibrant, social butterfly was now a ghost in our apartment, her wings crushed by the weight of a consequence she never saw coming. She had wanted freedom. She got it. And it was the most isolating, terrifying thing she had ever experienced. The cruelest form of karma wasn't something I had to enact. It was the natural consequence of her own words, reflected back at her in the unassailable silence I had built. 2 weeks later, the spare room was a shell. The boxes containing the remnants of my old life were stacked by the front door, sealed with packing tape. The air in the apartment was thick with the dust of dismantled dreams. I felt nothing but a clean, surgical anticipation. Today was the day I cut the last thread. I'd rented a small U-Haul van, parked it right outside. Maya, in a gesture of uncomplicated support, had offered to come with her car to help with the last few boxes and drive me to my new place. She was waiting downstairs, a living, breathing symbol of the future. As I carried the last box from the spare room, Qley emerged from the hallway. She looked diminished. Her hair was pulled back in a greasy ponytail, and she wore the same sweatpants I'd seen her in for days. The vibrant, dismissive woman from Act 1 was gone, replaced by a hollowed-out version. Her eyes were red and raw. "So this is it?" she asked, her voice raspy from disuse or crying. "You're just leaving? You're not even going to try?" I set the box down by the door. "The trying was the first year, Qley. This is the consequence." She flinched, wrapping her arms around herself. The bravado was gone, stripped away by weeks of silence and the undeniable reality of the U-Haul outside. She was facing the finality of her own logic. "Alex, please," she whispered, taking a step forward. Tears welled in her eyes. They were real this time, I could tell. The tears of genuine loss, not just of wounded pride. "We can fix this. It was a mistake. A stupid, horrible mistake. I love you." I looked at her. I searched for the anger, the hurt, the lingering attachment. There was nothing. It was like looking at a photograph of someone I'd known a long time ago. The emotional connection had been severed. I was already gone. "There's nothing to fix, Qley," I said, my voice even and calm. "Your mistake wasn't having the app. Your mistake was showing me who you were when you were caught. My mistake was not believing you the first time." The front door was slightly ajar. It pushed open the rest of the way, and Maya stepped in. She was a splash of color in the monochrome ruin of the apartment. She wore a simple jeans and t-shirt combo, her keys jingling in her hand. She looked fresh, alive, and completely at ease. "Hey, just checking if you needed a hand with the last." She trailed off, her eyes flicking from me to Qley, sensing the tension. "Oh, sorry. I can wait in the car." Qley's face transformed. The vulnerability vanished, scorched away by a fresh wave of bitter, jealous rage. She looked Maya up and down, a sneer twisting her lips. "So this is her?" Qley spat, her voice dripping with venom. "This is the upgrade? You're just running off with the first easy slut you matched with? You think that's real?" Maya didn't flinch. She met Qley's gaze, her expression one of mild pity, like an adult looking at a toddler having a tantrum. She didn't say a word. She didn't have to. Her mere presence was the ultimate rebuttal. I felt a final, quiet click inside me. This was it. The true, ugly core exposed. I picked up the last box. "No, Qley," I said, my tone firmer now, the tone of a man drawing a line in the sand and guarding his own peace. "I'm moving on to a life where the person I'm with is proud to be with me. A life where we're not married doesn't mean I get to disrespect you." I looked from her tear-streaked, furious face to Maya's calm, steady one. The contrast was staggering. I handed the box to Maya. "I'll be right down." She gave a small, understanding nod and took the box, walking back out to the car without a backward glance at the wreckage she was leaving behind. I turned to Qley one last time. She was crying openly now, the anger dissolving back into helpless despair. She had played her last card and lost. "You and your apps. You're part of a past I'm glad I left behind," I said, my hand on the doorknob. "Don't contact me again." I walked out, pulling the door shut behind me. The latch clicked with a soft, final sound. I didn't look back. I descended the stairs, each step feeling lighter than the last. The bright afternoon sun hit my face as I emerged from the building. Maya was leaning against her car, a small, warm smile on her face. "You okay?" she asked. I looked at her, at the open road ahead, at the U-Haul packed with the pieces of my new beginning. The old apartment, the ghost of Qley, the entire painful chapter was already fading in the rearview mirror of my mind. "Never better," I said, and for the first time in a very long time, I meant it with every fiber of my being. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.